Andras here. When I'm not co-hosting The World Is Wrong podcast, I'm hosting and producing the Radio 8-Ball podcast, where we answer questions by picking songs at random, like picking musical tarot cards. We've hosted musical divinations for people like John C. Reilly, Patricia Arquette, Tig Notaro, and Fred Armisen, and hosted over 200 songwriters, providing the randomly chosen answers from Inara George and Dan Byrne to Mose Allison and Alan Toussaint. That's Radio 8-Ball, all one word. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and download our app from the iTunes App Store.
I'm Larry Bishop, and you're listening to The World Is Wrong podcast.
We're here to tell you how the world is wrong. The world is wrong about Black Snake Moan.
Welcome to The World Is Wrong, an extremely positive podcast where we celebrate films the world is wrong about. I am one of your hosts. I am Andras Sad Lip Jones.
And I'm Brian Cool Guy Connolly.
And together we are your bluesmen. We're like brothers. So we're like your blues siblings. And
I love that movie, The Blues Siblings.
Yeah.
It's like the best John Landis movie.
It's boy, this show is already as conflicting and potentially troubling as the film we're about to discuss, Black Snake Moan, from the director Craig Brewer, starring Samuel L. Jackson, Christina Ricci, and Justin Timberlake. And why don't we just play a clip from it and then start talking about it?
You know what the sun's all about when the lights go on.
The fuck you been doing to me?
I ain't laid a hand on you except to break your fever. Like I said,
Get this goddamn chain off me!
Look, girl, you been running wild on me. Between them fits and them fever dreams you having, I've been chasing you all over this place at night.
Well, I'm woke now. You can take this off.
No, you ain't right yet.
I'm right enough to stand on my own 2 feet. Now get this goddamn chain off me!
Why you let them men treat you like that?
What?
All them men you up under, why you let them do you like that?
What the hell you know about me? You ain't got no right to talk to me about that shit. Who the fuck do you think you are?
I saved your life, girl. I can do and say whatever the fuck I want. Now, I didn't give you enough change so you can get around the house here. You can get the kitchen, bathroom back yonder. You got enough food around here. A few more swallows left in that medicine over there.
Whatever you want. You know, if you want to have me, you can take me. I'll do whatever you like. When you're done, I gotta go. You know, because I can't stay here with you.
God seemed fit to put you in my path. And I aim to cure you of your wickedness.
You some kind of pervert?
No, ma'am.
Some crazy Jesus freak? You know, fuck the spirit in me?
You watch your tongue in my house.
Look at mister.
Now you sick. You
Mister.
got a sickness.
I will
We done
do-
broke the fever.
I will do whatever you
Now
want.
we gonna break the hole the devil got on you.
Okay, I'm trying something a little bit new here. If you've noticed in the past, I tend to write up a long description of these films, and then it kind of turns into a lecture. And so I'm trying something a little bit different. I just wanted to just dive in. I love this movie, and I love its simplicity. I love its audaciousness. I love how it seemingly is one thing, but it's another thing. It was Craig Brewer's follow-up to Hustle and Flow, which I just watched for the first time last night in preparation for this. That was a big blind spot, and boy, is that great. And this is a fantastic follow-up to it, starring Samuel L. Jackson as a bluesman and farmer in the South, modern South, a character named Lazarus, who's going through a painful divorce. And Christina Ricci, who is a character suffering through some form of PTSD manifesting as what might be called nymphomania, and her character who does a lot of drugs and is trying to survive after her beloved boyfriend, fiance, lover, Justin Timberlake, has gone off to join the army. And so she's alone, and she has these fits that lead her to just need to have sex with lots of different people. And these two characters come together when she is dumped outside of Samuel Jackson's farm on this lonely road where he's the only one around, and she's this beaten and sexually molested white woman in her underwear and a very skimpy top. And Samuel Jackson doesn't know what to do except to bring her in and try and nurse her back to health, because if he calls the police, it's not going to go well, especially if she's, it could, we know all too well how poorly that could go. And then what happens is this fantastic drama between these two characters that leans heavily into Samuel Jackson's, Lazarus's background as a blues musician, and it has this whole bluesy element. There's also this very Southern Baptist churchy element that might turn me off, that sort of plays into it. And the thing that everyone talks about this film, and maybe this is, I'm just going to start seeking into how the world might be wrong about it, is everyone talks about it as the film where Samuel Jackson chains Christina Ricci to a radiator. And that, I think the film purposely wants us to think that that's what the film is about. And a film poster with a black man and chains and a scantily clad white woman is going to push a lot of buttons. And then you watch this movie and it's so much playing against what you assume that movie is going to be, while also delivering a lot of the stuff that you would want from that movie that you don't want it to be. There's a lot of sweaty, sexy bodies, and there's humor, and there's just that, I don't know, that kind of that movie, that, I don't know, almost Grindhouse feeling movie from the 70s feeling.
Yeah.
But then the film is a lot more concerned with redemption and with boundaries and with healing than you'd ever expect from a movie that has the poster and the premise that this one does. So, so I hope that works as a description. There's a lot more we'll get into. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, this movie's really interesting. It's not at all what I expected. Because I was kind of going and thinking this would be maybe feeling kind of like a Tarantino movie, of sort of like a 21st century version of an exploitation film. And instead you have sort of like, in the middle of this movie, there's like this exploitation movie, but it's actually like filled out and surrounded by a movie that's not at all an exploitation movie, which is really fascinating. Because I feel like Tarantino movies like kind of stay in that exploitation world-ish. Like even his more serious, like, or more, quote unquote real stuff, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or like The Hateful Eight. It still kind of has this roots in this exploitation cinema that he loves so much, and it works. But this movie kind of goes back and forth. But it kind of dips its toes into exploitation or jumps all in, and then it'll jump out and be like, oh, here's the heart that you don't get from that, or here's sort of the more this interaction with people that wouldn't be in that movie. And I really enjoyed how it played with those elements. And Samuel Jackson is fucking amazing. I mean, he always is, but he's really good in this movie.
Yeah, I think this, at the time he said that he felt like it was his finest performance. And as I was looking through his very, very impressive career, you want to have your mind blown, go check out Samuel L. Jackson's IMDb. He's one of those actors who never broke out. He just he keeps plateauing. He keeps upping his plateau. Basically, you think, oh, well, this was his breakout. And then he was in Star Wars. And then he was in all these Tarantino films that you thought happened before. Like, his timeline gets all kind of screwy. But this really does stand out as an amazing performance of his. It was the film that made me start thinking of him as our Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah. I remember you saying that to me a long time ago, and that was a very interesting revelation. Like, I'd never thought of that, and it totally makes sense.
Right, because he's a guy who, because he came up playing heavies, there's an implied menace to him no matter what role he's playing. Like, it's almost like the weakest Samuel Jackson can play, like, say, a character like Glass, is just always going to be... That's why he's great as that character, because him sitting in that wheelchair carries menace, and he can always play off of that.
Yeah.
This film, when I watched it recently, I was thinking how it's kind of... it's not In a Lonely Place, but it functions similarly in his career as In a Lonely Place does for Bogart, in the same way that, like, because we bring this dangerousness and romance with the Bogart character, it makes that character in that film way more complex than it would be just on the paper. And it's it's the same thing here, where Samuel L. Jackson, he does a couple of things that are threatening and tough, but for the most part, again, if this was played by another character, I feel like it would just be a totally different film. It just with any other actor in it, in that role.
Sorry. So how is the world wrong about this movie?
Oh, sorry. I kind of worked that into my description, which is just basically, I feel like the film wants you to be wrong about this movie. Like, it is consciously saying, hey, this is going to be a sexy, sultry, potentially racially charged film, and you're going to feel weird and sexy and and then you watch it and it's like, this is this film about relationships and Christianity and redemption and the blues. And again, you're going to get what you paid for. You get Christina Ricci walking in her short shorts and her little cropped top and telling a truck to fuck off with her finger in the air, and the blues music playing, and you get Samuel Jackson dragging her back into the farm by the chain. And if you just saw that scene, you'd be like, oh, this is a terrifying, terrifying movie. But if you get that what he's doing is, like, in an archetypal way, he's giving her these boundaries that she never got before. And in the end, it makes this great statement about how powerful and healing great boundaries can be. And having something like a physical symbol of those boundaries can be all you need to, to pull you back from the edge of some sort of neurosis or psychosis. And so, in a way the world is wrong about this film is a way that the film wants the world to be wrong about it. And that's one of the things that I really love about this film, is that that's a really tight high wire to walk. And you have to be really sure of yourself as a director to do that, to make that kind of a choice. Is, I'm going to make a movie that you think is one thing, and you're going to come and you're going to get that one thing, but you're actually not going to get that one thing, and I'm going to take you to a totally other place that you would never go to if I advertised this film about being about good boundaries and healing and Christianity.
And it's funny because when you read the critics' reviews, it does seem like some of them can't get out of the trap of the exploitation part of it, though. Like a lot of them are just like offended by this movie, and no matter what. And it makes me wonder if they actually finished it, if they just watched the first 30 minutes and turned it off. You know, I think it was, I don't know if it's Peter Travers or somebody was like, this is one of the worst sex movies I've ever seen. It's like, I don't think this movie's supposed to be sexy in the way that you think it. I don't know. It's just interesting that some people really did kind of trip over the exploitation part and couldn't get out of it. And other people like you can like see beyond that and see that there actually is a much more interesting movie than just a throwback to exploitation going on here.
Yeah, I actually found myself a little bit like I wanted to be offended by, like, there's a point when Samuel Jackson's character is pretty pissed off because the wife who left him had an abortion. And so there's the film's sort of anti-abortion and it's pro-Christianity. Yeah. And there's something about that I could see myself being, I would be more offended by that. And the sort of just the general sex negativity of portraying this woman who has strong sexual desires as being like you've heard me in my description, like I don't like the word nymphomaniac because it pathologizes what might in a lot of cases be totally healthy behavior. In this case it's not, because it's in this movie and it's really amped up, but those are all things that could have pushed my buttons of like the sex negativity, the anti-abortion, the sort of redemptive Christianity aspect of it, but all of those worked. And I think in a way they all worked because they were grounded in this other more complex, gritty reality. And then also the sort of lurid iconography of a blues song, which if you are a fan of Hustle and Flow, you kind of get that, okay, this is a guy who really, he draws a lot of his energy as a filmmaker from music. Like both of his first two films were so deeply musical. And I guess you could say the same thing about, I guess his other films. Footloose is a musical, and Dolomite, even though it's not a musical, it has a musical element to it because of Dolomite's language.
Yes.
So,
and that movie too does the same trick as this movie, where you have these expectations going in. Like I remember Dolomite being like, this is going to be some fun, movie, like it's Eddie Murphy doing this fun version of like Rudy Ray Moore. And then when you watch the movie, there's so much heart in it that is unexpected, and it feels so good. When you finish Dolomite, you weren't expecting to feel so uplifted and positive. And this movie kind of does the same trick of you think it's going to be a feeling a certain way when you watch it, but then you end up feeling a little more positive than you thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good, it makes sense that he also works a lot in TV, because that's a sort of a very TV-ish way of doing drama. That you get people in with a racy idea, but you got to give them some resolve that makes it easier for them to go to sleep and, wake up and go to work the next day. So, yeah, Craig Brewer, let's talk. I guess he's one of those people who you could say that the world might be wrong about, because he did Hustle and Flow and it got Academy Award nominations, and then he did Black Snake Moan, and it seemed like that kind of fell flat, even though I think it's an amazing film and we're making the case that it's an amazing film. But then he mostly worked in TV. He directed The Shield. He directed a great series that I loved called Terrier that features the villain from Black Snake Moan, Michael Raymond James. And he was one of the main characters in Terriers, which there was only one season of. Did you see that? Did you see that series?
No, I've heard about it, and I never knew what it was about. What is it about?
It's really good. Donald Logue and Michael Raymond James are these sort of, I don't know, Southern California, but like not LA, like more down towards San Pedro vibe, sort of down and out cop detectives. I guess Donald Logue is an ex-cop, and Michael Raymond James is his buddy who's a former criminal, and they kind of solve crimes but are also doing crimes, and it's a fun show. It's gritty, and I was a big fan of Lodge 49, and I remember thinking that Lodge 49, it's a lighter series, but still they both got that thing of there's a Southern California that exists further south of LA that is like this working class beach culture that is really its own thing. And when shows or films capture that, I love it. But anyway, so Craig Brewer did an episode of that. He worked a lot on the series Empire, which I had not even realized until today how much the series Empire feels like a sequel to Hustle and Flow, because Terrence Howard and Taraji P. Henson are both in Empire playing characters who seem like they could be the older versions of the characters they played in Hustle and Flow. And that's just like this weird bit of world crossing that I was totally unaware of. And now I'm kind of more excited to go back. And I kind of stopped after the first season of Empire, but it kind of makes me want to go back and check out further seasons.
And of course, created by our old friend Lee Daniels, who directed The Paperboy, which we did. And there's a lot of Black Snake Moan kind of reminded me of The Paperboy a little bit, just that kind of sweaty, lurid, sort of like it's kind of filthy and dirty, kind of make you feel movie, but Paperboy definitely doesn't ever really make you feel good towards the end of the movie. Things go horribly wrong and stay that way. Whereas this movie, it takes a nice upswing at the end. But it makes sense that Craig Brewer would work with Lee Daniels for an episode or two of his show. Not just,
it looks like 20 episodes of Empire.
Wow.
So I really feel like I'm guessing it looks like Lee Daniels was so inspired by Hustle and Flow that he created Empire, and it's almost like Empire is Hustle and Flow fan fiction that got much bigger than the source material. And so it just made sense that then he brought in Craig Brewer actually as a director and as a consulting producer on the whole thing. So that's not a hidden connection. It's just one that I wasn't aware of. And if you like that Paperboy, Black Snake Moan feeling, Hustle and Flow definitely has it in a way that Dolomite Is My Name does not.
Yeah.
He made those two sweaty, pushy, assured films, and then he did a bunch of TV, and now he's Eddie Murphy's guy, it seems like, because he did Dolomite Is My Name, and now he's doing Coming to America too. So
I'm so excited.
Yes. It's completed and due in 2021. But there is a connection that I noticed between The Paperboy and Black Snake Moan, which was the featured appearance of tighty whitey underwear on good-looking young movie stars. In The Paperboy, it's Zac Efron, and in Black Snake Moan, it's Christina Ricci, who what an amazing, like we talked about Samuel L. Jackson's amazing career. How many great films has Christina Ricci been in?
Not a lot, but there's a lot, but she's always really good in them. Like, the thing is, like, she also just does it. Like, Samuel Jackson makes a million movies a year, but Christina Ricci, I feel like the few movies that she's made, I mean, not few, she's still made a bunch, but like whenever she shows up, it always feels kind of special. Like, she's not in a lot of things. So when you get something like this or a Buffalo 66, whatever, it's always very exciting because she's always trying something new and really taking chances, like doing really brave, brave roles, stuff that would be hard for an actor to want to do, like to be in a movie where you're basically practically naked for the whole damn movie. That's not gonna be fun.
Yeah.
that's hard work. Like, can you imagine, like, most scenes in movies when you do like a sex scene, maybe at most it could take 2 days, maybe, where you're sitting around naked, but usually you're in a bed or something. But like here, she's like walking around, chained up, practically nude the whole damn time, like the most of the movie.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine just like doing that.
Yeah, feeling good in that state and she definitely owns it.
Oh yeah. And I don't think I've ever seen her do a performance like this before. Like, I've always thought she was good, but she is really good in this movie. Like, she really, like, it's a character that could have very easily been like over the top.
Oh yeah.
Like, if you're playing sort of like, I'm really horny all the time, like that character could turn into a parody. But she grounds it, and she makes it totally realistic. Like, it's extreme. Like, the character it's like an exaggeration of sort of a sex maniac, but like she pulls it off. Like, it does it. Like, you don't hate her. You're not disgusted by her. Like, you really do feel
the
for
film.
her.
I really feel like that's where the filmmaking, like Samuel Jackson has the great performance at the center of it, but the film knows that it's all like he gets to be great because he's reacting to this primal force that is Christina Ricci. And she, as you said, it comes off as this, you really feel the desperation and the woundedness and you don't feel like she's just like a sex pot, even though the film kind of treats her like it would treat a sex pot, but it also treats her like it would treat a sort of a broken heroine trying to find her way towards health or towards redemption. And again, such a fine line to walk for everyone involved, but particularly, as you said, for her, other than, maybe Burt Lancaster in The Swimmer. I can't think of another film that I feel like
where you're naked.
Yeah, like that's hard. It's like to be the whole movie in your swim trunks. It's just you got to be, first of all, be very confident in who you are, and even then, it's not easy. I don't care how confident you are. You show up on set every day and be basically naked for a month to 6 weeks. It's especially, and again, Christina Ricci, a lot of her characters are, again, I don't think she's ever played a character that leaned into the sexuality, the physical sexuality in this way. Nothing I can think of. But she has had, I mean, if you go back all the way to Addams Family, like she has great films where she gave great performances as a kid, and then she has great performances as in The Ice Storm and The Opposite of Sex, and Buffalo 66 when she was a kid, when she was more like a teenager, a young woman, and then she has this as more of an adult. And I don't know if you ever saw it, but she was in the series. It wasn't great, but she was great in it, called Pan Am. And
I think that was kind of dismissed as like a Mad Men ripoff, and people kind of cast it aside pretty quickly.
But she was the Donald Draper. She totally, her character was fantastic in that film, and in that series. Again, it wasn't that great a series, but she was just on another level. And I look forward to seeing what kind of films she does as she becomes an older actress. I feel like it seems like we get one or two great Christina Ricci roles every decade. And by the end, I'll probably be dead. She'll outlive me. So good for her.
She might be a smoker. You don't know.
She's smoking. I don't know if she's a smoker. Now, did you notice who played her mother?
Yeah, that's Kim Richards, child star. She was in Watcher in the Woods, right?
Escape to Witch Mountain.
Is that Kim Richards?
Yeah.
Escape to Witch Mountain. Like, yeah. And she's one of the Real Housewives. I don't know which one she is. I'm guessing Beverly Hills. But I don't think I've seen a movie with her as a grown-up in it.
Yeah, Tough Turf maybe was the last one I saw her in. That I'd seen this movie for years. I never recognized her as being Kim Richards. She's not a very likable character in this, and Kim Richards is someone I had a crush on through much of my childhood. So, yeah. So she's in it. Any other performances that you feel like were standout? Well, we didn't talk about Justin Timberlake. I mean, everyone loves their Justin Timberlake. They can't get enough of the JT. Are you a fan of?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think Kylie Richards is the one in Watch in the Woods. Kim Richards is the Escape to Witch Mountain. They're sisters. They look the same. I get confused. But Timberlake. Is this the first big Timberlake role in a movie? Was this sort of like his kind of breakthrough being an actor? Because I now know him, like now he's been in like Social Network and he's like, established as like I could be in movies as an actor. But I'm trying to think, like, is this the earliest time where he's in a thing like actually with a sizable role where it's like not just something in the background or just being Justin Timberlake?
Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like it. Judging from his IMDb page. The things before that, he was in Southland Tales. He was in Alpha Dog. He was in Edison.
But like Alpha Dog and Southland Tales is all the same year. So in 2006, he was just sort of like, okay, I'm going to be an actor now. And all three of those movies are great. So he definitely started strong. And you really feel sorry for him in this movie. You kind of like, it seems like he's going, like he's doesn't really want to go off in the military, and then they kind of allude that he fucks up and he gets discharged. Why is he discharged? I kind of missed, like, why is he sent back so soon?
Well, you can see the thing that these two characters, it seems that the thing that binds Justin Timberlake's character to Christina Ricci's character and her to him is that they both share these they both have these fits. And for Justin Timberlake, the fit is sort of like an internal meltdown. Like he has like a panic. He has panic attacks.
Yeah.
Whether, if he hears loud noises or if he feels really stressed out, and, not ideal for a war zone. And
True.
By the same token, Christina Ricci has these compulsions, and they both manifest in the similar way. The cinematic language around them, it feels like what these two people share is basically, you might even say they have the same neuroses. They just manifest in different ways. They probably both have some sort of PTSD from childhood trauma, like we see with Christina Ricci. They explore it a lot more because the film's really much more about her character. But it's one of the things that I love about where the film goes and what it's saying about. You can almost see, like, in the Samuel Jackson character and the Justin Timberlake character, these sort of different poles of masculinity. One who is the sort of like, with Samuel Jackson, he's a grounded man who knows how to, I will not be moved is a sort of one of his things. Is like he's all about boundaries. He has these boundaries for himself. He has these boundaries for other people, and like that some of them don't work in his life in this relationship with his wife, but that's what he brings to this young couple. And Justin Timberlake is sort of like the opposite. He's the fully unformed. And it kind of makes sense in his career too. He's a fully unformed actor in this film, but he's doing a great job displaying that weakness. And it's not a weakness that is like about like he's his friend who is a rapist and a terrible person. He's weak. But whereas Justin Timberlake his character is broken and trying to find his way towards being the man that Christina Ricci needs. And then through her interaction with Samuel Jackson, she finds the space to be able to be, to almost hold that masculine energy for Justin Timberlake when he can't hold it. Like, I want to talk about that last scene, so I guess we will just give this the spoiler alert shout out. But What did you make of the last scene? Because in the last scene, Justin Timberlake and Christina Ricci are driving away. They've just gotten married. Everything's going to be okay. And a truck drives by the car, and it starts to freak Justin Timberlake out. And then you can see she has this chain that she was given from Samuel Jackson, and she just sort of uses it on her finger. And you can see the film is telling you that she doesn't need the actual chain. She just needs to think about it now, and she can find that strength, that internal strength to slow things down and not be swept up as she had been in the past. But what do you make of that last scene? Like, do you feel like there's hope for these two characters?
Yeah, like I think it was kind of implying that she is now going to teach this lesson to Justin Timberlake in a way of like how to make it so he can live his life, you know, in a way without being so upset and without having to, like, she can help him maybe overcome this panic and this like fear that he has, and with kind of lessons she learned, that she like had this kind of emotional, you know, breakdown of a life, and then she learned how to kind of put up her own rules and boundaries and how to kind of like be a little more on the straight and narrow, or just not be so, you know, overtaken by her emotions and like PTSD kind of stuff. And I think in my opinion, like, I think it's implying that she's now going to like, she's reminding herself of what she has, and maybe she will pass it to Timberlake. Does it mean she's going to chain him up too? I don't know. Or so in something to the extreme to teach him, like his thing's kind of the opposite, where he's kind of afraid to go out, whereas she wanted to leave, you know? So like, I don't know what his chain would be. But I think that's kind of the implication of how as I read it.
Maybe some hot sauce. And no, that was from last week's. That was last week's film. Yeah, and I guess there's another thing to talk about this is, so I one of our early episodes I spoke about a podcast I follow called the Michaud Mission, that their whole goal is to cover every black film ever made, and the discussion of what makes a film a black film is one of the central conversations in their show. And Craig Brewer is really interesting in this sense because it feels like he's a white guy, or he looks like a white guy. Yeah. I don't know anything about him and what his background is, but he presents very much as a white guy, but you wouldn't know it from his films. His films feel like they are, well, they're black enough films so that you think that Empire, which is clearly a black series, is leaning into the mythology created by Hustle and Flow, which is made by this white guy filmmaker. But I guess I don't know if we're the guys to answer that, but it's an interesting point to bring up about Craig Brewer. He feels like, and now that he's sort of Eddie Murphy's chosen filmmaker, you know, if he's a guy who wants to be a black filmmaker, he is certainly getting plenty of opportunities to be so, between Empire, Lee Daniels, Eddie Murphy, and then those two films. He's getting his wish. And do you have any thoughts on that?
Like, he's clearly these are the types of stories he's drawn to. I don't know if it's where he's from. Like, based on these movies, it makes it seem like he must be from the South, is my guess. And then maybe, he's from Virginia. So, like, maybe just he grew up in an environment that is maybe more, you know, predominantly black. It's sort of like when you hear stories or when you watch 8 Mile about Eminem, of just sort of like, I'm a white guy doing rap, but, like, this is the culture I grew up with. Like, this is the environment that formed me. So I'm not going to like run away from that. This is my true self. I'm not co-opting a thing. This is what I know. Like, this is who I am. It just, you know, it happens to be the color of my skin. And I think like, it's interesting because I don't hear a lot of people give Craig Brewer shit for that. Not in the same way that like, say, Eminem would get, or a filmmaker like Tarantino. Like, I feel Craig Brewer has never had, I've never heard anyone complain that he's like co-opting a culture, or he's kind of like in the wrong place as a filmmaker and he shouldn't be making these stories. I've never heard that, but I've heard that about, you know, other people that kind of do the same thing.
Do you feel like it's because like Tarantino is very much out front of his films, and Eminem is obviously out front. Like basically, Craig Brewer doesn't feel like he's kind of like you watch Hustle and Flow, and you see Terrence Howard and Taraji P. Henson and all these. You don't see him in it.
Yeah, maybe you just don't think about it. Maybe you're just like, maybe a lot of people watch these movies and never know they're made by a white guy, because he in his own right is not a celebrity. Like Craig Brewer is not a person that I would recognize on the street, or even if you say that name, not a lot of people know who that is.
Seems like that's going to change between
I think so too.
Dolomite and Coming to America 2. Coming to America 2 is going to be huge, and
it's
John
it's
Landis
interesting
and him.
it's interesting that just like with the first, that Coming to America, the first one is a black movie directed by John Landis. So like, it's interesting that the sequel, Eddie Murphy's like, let's have a white filmmaker make this sort of black comedy, this black film. So that's fascinating that they're sticking with that in 2021.
I guess the question is, John Landis is definitely a white filmmaker. He makes mostly films. He's not just white, but his films are mostly about white people at a time when there weren't a lot of black filmmakers around. Craig Brewer is a more interesting case, I think, because he's again, does he break a mold? Like, what is he like? Clearly he's doing something right in terms of being able to tell these stories. Although I have to say, when as much as I loved My Name is Dolomite, I feel like it didn't have the cinematic punch of Hustle and Flow and Black Snake Moan. They're just really tasty, like you can feel the film in them. And My Name is Dolomite is great. I loved it, but looking at it, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like it's made by the same guy.
I think that's a Netflix problem. Like, all of their movies look like crap for the most part, unless it's like The Irishman or Roma. Like, I think they like to cut corners and they just kind of look like television. Like, not even fancy television, but they just kind of have the cinematic quality is not quite there. I think it kind of looks cheap, Yeah.
I think that will serve Coming to America 2 really well. I wouldn't want Coming to America 2 to look like Black Snake Moan, but I feel like My Name is Dolomite could have looked like Black Snake Moan, and it would have been great. But no, I'm not trying to quibble here. There was certainly enough that was right with My Name is Dolomite that I don't want to complain. And like I said, I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about Craig Brewer in the coming years. And I think people will come back to Black Snake Moan. I got to tell you, when I've watched it now, like probably 3 or 4 times, and every time I watch it, I'm just struck by how great it looks. Like, just every shot, it's just such assured filmmaking. It's funny. The first time I watched it, it was really I found myself, it was over a decade ago, and I was definitely drawn. I was drawn to my male gaze was drawn to Christina Ricci, and a little bit distracted by her throughout the first viewing of the film. But now that I can just sort of watch it without the suspense and without the sort of prurient gaze, it's such a beautiful, archetypally resonant film. And I'd love to see. I hope that Craig Brewer, once he's made his big Hollywood films, that he will come back to making gritty little character pieces like this, because I think he's great at it. He's really great.
Yeah, I always hope they come back. And like, man, I love the scene in this movie where all the scenes of Samuel Jackson just like playing music, and him just like kind of working on the song and building up to him doing the show. It's so good. And like, I feel like, unlike Humphrey Bogart, Samuel Jackson to me can disappear more in a character, even though he has this bigger than life persona. I got so instantly drawn into like the character of Lazarus, You know, just like I'm instantly drawn into when he plays like Jules in Pulp Fiction, or like he's always so good at like giving you a really fully formed character. And like I'm guessing he must have like practiced and because I don't know if he was a musician before this movie, but he does a really good job.
Oh,
and it, like, it really feels like a character, like it really believed that this is the thing this character's into.
Yeah. Definitely one of the better actor playing musician performances I can think of. The live scenes where, like, because they do this thing where they build him up, like, oh, when we used to come out and dance to him, everyone was curious, was crazy about your fingers, your hard fingers, Samuel Jackson. And it just builds him up. And then when he actually has to perform, it's a great blues performance. And
yeah.
This here song from back in the day, 1962. My woman put my black ass out in the cold. I said, baby, why you leaving? She said, I love done gone cold. Well, I waded through water and I waded through mud till I come to this place they calls the bucket of blood. That bartender give me a dirty look and a dirty glass. I said, say, motherfucker, do you know who I am? He said, hell no, nigga, I don't give a goddamn. I reached down in my pocket and pulled out my shiny 44. Shot that motherfucker twice. He hit the goddamn floor. About that time, you could have heard the drop of a pin. That's when that bad motherfucker Billy Lyons walked in. About that time, a pimp eased up and turned out the lights. That's when I had old Billy Lyons dead in my sight. When the lights come back on, old Billy's gone to rest. I pumped 9 of my bullets in his motherfucking chest.
The juxtaposition of that with Christina Ricci dancing in the crowd, some just really rich, delicious filmmaking that we can't, as much as we describe it, it can't convey how good it feels to be in this movie once it gets rolling. You're just, especially again after the second watch, once the suspense and once you sort of know where it's going, and then you can just go and leisurely enjoy how delicious the filmmaking is. It's really it's a film that really comes out on the second watch. So
I wonder what his Footloose is like. Did you watch that? I never saw that.
I have not, but I am now curious.
To see,
because
that's another. I mean, based on the original, that's another story that has a lot of stuff about morality and just some Christianity in there too, but in kind of a negative way of like they're sort of the villains, at least in the original Footloose. So it'd be interesting to see if he still plays with that in his version or what.
Yeah. That's one to check out. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to cover on this film. It's one of those. It really is one of those films where I just want you to see it. Like, I can tell you about it. Like, it should be enough to then when we say, hey, Samuel Jackson, one of his best performances. Christina Ricci, also great, but also, very, very attractive. Again, I feel a little bit bad saying that, but then I remember that how much we gushed over Zac Efron in his underwear in The Paperboy, that it's like, well,
Yeah, we're equally balanced.
Yeah.
We spread it out to everybody.
Yeah. But that's, yeah, the music, the great actors giving great performances and looking great. It's a film that is, I don't want to say that's more than the sum of its parts, but it's a film that I feel like the best parts of it are things that cannot be described. You just have to experience it. So, let's play a promo for one of our fellow Paper House podcasts.
Do you call yourself a music fan? Are you the one making the playlist for all the parties? Then you gotta listen to the Pinch Music Podcast, where we interview musicians, engineers, producers, and music lovers of all types. We even put together playlists for any and all occasions. So if you want to have the Beatles versus Stones debate, pick up some engineering tips, or just discover a new artist, you gotta check out the Pinch Music Podcast, all a part of the Paper House Network.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm AJ.
And we have a podcast called The Director's Wall,
examining a filmmaker's career, film by film. First up was M. Night Shyamalan, then Francis Ford Coppola. Who's next? Is there anything to this whole auteur theory? Find out on
The Director's Wall.
Subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or your preferred listening platform.
Oh man, did you see the trivia of Craig Brewer about his grandfather?
No.
His grandfather is Marvelous Marv Thornberry of the 1962 New York Mets.
Oh, interesting. I guess he should make a baseball movie. Well, is there anything that we missed out on there, Brian, in your notes?
The two other movies that it strangely reminded me of. One is Dogville, starring our favorite Nicole Kidman. Because that's another movie where she's chained up to that whole movie, right? Isn't she like kept hostage in this town and walking around with like shackles on? Whereas in that movie, she teaches everyone else a lesson. But that's another one where it's sort of like they are like, you're this lady, like we need you to like, be chained up, like you're gonna sleep with our men, and like there's like all this weird stuff going on in that movie, and like. There's definitely like this movie's nothing like it, but I can see the way this movie, the way that Black Snake Moan kind of pushes the shocking stuff or did in the ads, kind of felt like a Lars von Trier a little bit on how he likes to push things that sometimes on paper his movies also kind of sound like exploitation in a very different way. Like, but his movies are these grand art films. And then the other one that reminded me of a bit is The Exorcist. Like in a way. In a way, like Samuel Jackson's character is sort of like he's sort of performing like he's sort of like a sexual exorcist. Like sort of like I'm gonna get these horny demons. Like this movie could have been called The Sexorcist. Is all I'm saying. Like
I will
it has this
cure
sort of thing
you
of
of
like,
your wickedness.
Like, because in The Exorcist, like Linda Blair's character of Reagan is like handcuffed to or tied to the bed, and like they're trying to just shake out of her this stuff, and as it's going along, she's physically kind of getting more falling apart and then looking more unwashed and sweaty, and like I don't know, there's some weird exorcist thing in my mind while watching this movie too. Another movie, yeah. I mean, it's nothing like The Exorcist, but there's something about.
Oh, no, I think that's
a
very fair comparison. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I just want to. Let's time travel back to an earlier episode about. Can you imagine if when Dudley Moore turned down Bo Derek, instead of just going back home, he chained her to her radiator and tried to heal her of her. I feel like that's in a way that's like his response to her was sort of like the most ineffectual version of Samuel Jackson's response to Christina Ricci's Ray character. It's this thing about older guys rejecting the sexuality of younger women, but in the case of 10, she's, represented as being somewhat healthy, whereas in Christina Ricci's case, she is clearly someone who's been damaged by life in some terrible ways. Mm-hmm. Think about other movies where you could see them, like who else could be chained up in a film? Like, how would it change? How would it change Network if Faye Dunaway chained William Holden to a radiator? I feel
Teach him a lesson.
I feel like she'd be the chainer in that one. Like, she'd chain him. Great films that would benefit from the addition of chains. Not the Defiant Ones. The Defiant Ones has chains. Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier chained together.
Yeah. Made them love each other. Yeah, there should just be a whole film festival of people, in chains. Just do Story of O, Gerald's Game. Just do a whole people held against their will.
Does Gerald's Game actually have chains? Is it chains or is it just...
Well, it's handcuffs. It's handcuffs, but it's more or less the same idea. Like, you're locked to a thing. You can't escape it.
Actually, it's really divisive. This is a debate that rages on Twitter to this day. Do films that feature handcuffs, should they be included in the genre of chain films? Definitely bondage films. They could all go under the rubric of bondage films, but the people who go to see films with chains in them really don't want to see handcuffs, and vice versa. The people who want handcuffs don't want to see chains.
Yeah, I like them both,
Well, you're pretty Catholic in your tastes, in the sense of, like, not Catholic like the religion, but in the sense of very diverse in your choice of bondage implements. So I'm sure that nipple clamps, ball gags, all of these things, that's all of a piece for you.
It's all good, yeah. I liked where this episode went. We're gonna get a whole new type of listeners. We're gonna get into some 50 Shades of Grey territory. But don't be tricked. Black Snake Moan by no means really an erotic movie per se. Like, it's not. But there is like a weird kind of lurid sexiness to it, but it also is inappropriate. It has that. It taps into that exploitation film thing for sure. But then it goes beyond it and it's much more interesting than just that. A very, very, as you said, lurid Hallmark film. Yeah.
Well, when we're not hosting the World is Wrong podcast, one of the things that you spend your time doing is hosting another podcast called The Director's Wall with your co-host AJ Gonzalez, where you look at the films of one director throughout their whole career. You're currently focusing on Francis Ford Coppola. Mm-hmm. And were any of the actors in this ever been in a Francis Ford Coppola film?
I don't think so. Isn't it weird? No Samuel Jackson, no Christina Ricci. No, he didn't.
No Kim Richards? She didn't show up as an extra in The Rain People or something?
I don't know if she born then. Maybe she was like 1. No, there's no. Yeah, weird, huh? It didn't. Yeah, he, like, as much as Samuel Jackson works, I don't think he's ever shown up in a Francis Ford Coppola movie. None that rings the bell.
Yeah. There is a Samuel Jackson connection to Coming to America, though.
Oh,
we forgot.
Yeah, totally.
One of his earliest roles was in Coming to America. So it makes me think, what about John Landis as a potential target for the Director's Wall? Would you ever consider doing a John Landis season?
Definitely. I'm a huge fan. Big fan. Like, I love him. He was one of the first filmmakers I ever got into. Like, him and Spielberg were sort of around the same time. It was like that sort of thing with Spielberg when you were like, I love all these movies, and then you realize, oh wait, they're all made by the same person, so that must mean I like this person.
And what's John Landis? What's the last film that he made?
Oh, I think it was maybe that Don Rickles documentary. Like, it's Mr. Warmth, so it's been a while. He kind of seems almost retired. You know, like he hasn't like made a lot of movies in a long time. Like he was doing some TV. He did like some episodes of Masters of Horror. And I think he still directs maybe some TV, but like the last movie I remember was that Rickles, and that was over 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
But
I'm
I think
looking.
we're overdue for another something. I mean, did you see this week? I mean, the week we're recording this, the Blues Brothers just got into the National Film Registry, so that's awesome.
You mean the Blues Siblings?
The Blues Siblings, the more PC current, the remake, the Blues Siblings. We're not going to gender these guys. We're just whoever. It doesn't matter. They're the Blues and they're related, and that's all you need to know.
Although blue, but if we hone in on just blue, isn't that leaving out some other colors? I mean, isn't that kind of blue supremacist?
Yeah. So the Rainbow Siblings.
The Rainbow Siblings.
The Rainbow Siblings should be the movie they make now. That way nobody's upset.
I'm a soul person. Dun, 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 dun. I'm a soul person. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. So,
soul person. So you also have another show called Radio 8 Ball where you answer questions by picking songs at random. So who was like the best blues artist you've had on there? Have you ever had a blues?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Artist?
Well, we're both from Olympia, so you might be familiar with Mudcat. You remember Mudcat?
No.
Charlie's neat, Charlie's sweet, and Charlie, he's a dandy. Charlie, he's the very one stole my peppermint candy. Over the river to feed my sheep, over the river, Charlie. Over the river to feed my sheep and measure up my barley.
Olympia, Northwest, a true Northwest blues man. He's like probably at this point in his late 60s, early 70s, and he is a guitar maker. And he's one of those guys who is old enough to have seen some of the original bluesmen, not the original bluesmen, but like that second generation of them while they were still out there performing. And he just brings this tremendous lineage, and he's one of those guys who, when he sings the blues, it feels really, really both joyful and, again, maybe the third use of the word lurid, but he definitely has that blues thing that Black Snake Moan has, where a lot of his songs are about train wrecks and addiction and and heartbreak and murder, but they always make you feel. But they have this like up bouncy quality that really, I don't know, gets at that sort of the transcendence of the blues. So if you're ever, he doesn't have any records, but he plays around Olympia, and if you ever have a chance to see Mudcat play, he's really great. And a lot of his songs are in the Radio 8 Ball app. We never talk about it on the show much, but we do have a Radio 8 Ball app you can download from the iTunes App Store that's filled with every song recorded in the history of Radio 8 Ball. And he's got like 12 or 15 songs in there, so definitely worth checking out. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, Brian?
I did.
Yeah, well,
I love this podcast. This is the only podcast I listen to. It's my favorite one.
What? You really should check out the Director's Wall and Radio 8 Ball. But if you out there have enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. Write to us at contact@theworldiswrongpodcast.com. If you have suggestions of films we should cover, if you have corrections, if you want to call us out for things that we missed on this episode, please get in touch with us. We're open to constructive criticism and creative insults. And don't give us boring insults. If you're going to give us insults, make them creative. And if you're going to give us criticism, make it constructive. And if you want to make sure that Brian sees it, then reach out to us on Instagram. He handles our Instagram page at The World Is Wrong Podcast on Instagram. And What are we going to be doing next week?
We are going to be doing, well, you are going to be doing a special episode about Meet Dave.
Meet Dave, the Eddie Murphy film with my friend Nigel Fullerton, who hosts the Murphy Mondays podcast. And you're going to be a guest on his podcast talking about
I Spy. So we're doing a little trade-off. He's going to be on here talking about a much not liked Eddie Murphy movie, and I'm going to be on his show representing us, The World Is Wrong, to talking about another one that no one likes, I Spy. So it's a little fun little, let's consider this like crossover episodes.
Yeah.
Like when they used to do that, so my character from Law and Order would show up in a character, like in Homicide, Life on the Street, like back in the day when it's Sweeps Week. This is our Sweeps Week.
Yeah. Well, it's also to celebrate the release of Coming to America. Right?
Yes.
So it's gonna be a lot of fun, and yeah. Anything else we should say?
No, just check it out. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about that movie.
Well, except that the line coming out of this is, since I didn't hear anything from you, I guess we're done. So
okay, ask again, and I'll be silent. Hold on.
No, I think I'm just gonna leave it.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, that's good. And if we don't have anything else to share, I hear nothing from you, so it falls to me to remind you that I know it's tough, but the world is wrong, and wherever you are, it's probably wrong about you.